Double
You weren't
check.
listening to me talking?
I was listening.
You lie? We're back. Welcome to the Charlotte Buzz, where we drink beer from local breweries while telling stories about the neighborhoods they're from. I'm Chrissy, and this is Drew.
And today...
We're starting season 2.
Why you interrupt me?
Because that's my job.
Anyways, today we're drinking fake plastic trees
Hey.
from Birdsong.
Chirp, chirp. All right, so I'm going to break these bad boys out. If you're watching, I'm going to address the elephant in the room here. If you are watching this as opposed to listening to this, welcome to the new studio. Isn't it pretty? We've got a new setup here. We've got new mic setup, new memorabilia and
Yeah, we got
decor.
a 1911 map of Mecklenburg County.
It's pretty.
We got a 704 shop exclusive
Bum, bum, bum.
hat. And then Homer the Jedi
Hey-o.
back there.
May the 4th.
That's from what, like 2 years ago?
I think so.
Ago?
It's been a while. But when you're doing a Charlotte history podcast, did y'all know we were a history podcast? I don't think we knew until
Yeah, maybe not.
2/3 through last season. It obviously went that way really quickly, but it was never really... It was intended to just be stories, and they just ended up mostly being historical, and then, you know, who knew? We're a history podcast.
Yeah, we thought we were going to do like current events and all that stuff as well, but that's boring. Everybody does that.
We're not newsworthy. We're just...
Oh, that's all I get?
Yep, that's all you get.
Just one little sip.
We are not currently working out of a growler. We are working out of a nice 4-pack of cans here. And so I gave you the last tiny sip of that first can.
Yeah, for some reason, breweries feel the need to be closed on Mondays.
Monday's when everybody needs beer.
Yeah, that's strange.
And so...
And of course, we were not prepared.
Season snuck up on us. We had a couple of weeks off to plan some other big and exciting things that are coming. Exciting things are coming. And... yeah, the date just totally snuck up on us, and we're working out of these lovely cans for now. But it's been an exciting 6 weeks. We made some really great connections. We spent some time working with the Charlotte Museum of History. Stay tuned for some of their stuff. Some collaborations there, and with some other great folks around town.
Well, talking about collaborations,
Well,
we don't want to make any promises.
she's all for stories.
Yeah.
All right, so nonetheless, we're going Birdsong today. And tell me about this beer that I just poured.
Yes, fake plastic trees, a hazy IPA, New England style.
Hey, I'm going to sip while you talk.
Yeah. 6.4%. About middle of the road for us, I believe.
Ooh. Full disclosure,
gets-
I've never had this one.
Yeah, I haven't either. It's 3.68 stars or whatever they are on Untapped.
Okay.
They're like suns more. They're like circles with like pointy things all the way around.
Maybe it's like an award seal.
Ah. Yes, that could be it. I call them stars. They are not stars. They are just points. So it is made with Cascade, Sriracha Ace, and Comet hops. Sriracha Ace, I do not believe we have had in a beer on this podcast before.
No, I was about to ask you if you're even saying that right. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
It's the first time I've heard you attempt that pronunciation.
It kind of looks like sriracha at quick glance, so I went with sriracha.
That's what it made me think of when you said it.
So what you getting from it?
I would say it's like exactly like what I am expecting from a hazy IPA. It's fruity, kind of light in terms of how an IPA can be light.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of after kick or anything like that. Citrusy. I feel almost maybe like lemony orangey. I'm not gonna lie, I never listen to you when you tell the description of it. Mostly because I'm too preoccupied with actually taking the sip and trying to discern what I want to tell you.
Well, I haven't said the
flavors.
description yet.
Okay, and so that's why half the time I'm like, I might have been Inception because he might have said it, or I might have just, I have no idea. So, or I might be like, you being like, oh, well, it's this and that. And then I'm like, I'm really getting this. And you're like, I just said that. So I never really know where I stand. But, yeah, I just feel like it's a very, like, if I'm thinking of a hazy IPA, this is almost exactly what I imagine it to be.
Cool.
Feels very, like, summery.
Well, here is the description.
Okay.
Refreshing and distinctive. Fake plastic trees is summer in a glass.
Hey!
Lemon citrus notes.
Yes!
And a piney
Guys,
hop
I'm learning what
bitterness
beer is.
complement a wheat-based malt bill for a hazy IPA that's incredibly drinkable no matter the occasion. Yes, I would put it on
I'm learning beers, guys.
I put it on the light side for sure when I first tasted it.
Yeah.
As far as hazies go, it's not as
It's not real thick. It's not.
thick with two C's. It ain't one of them.
Correct. But I would like to know why it is called fake plastic trees. Is there a real plastic tree? Let's start with that, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
of course there is.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, I don't understand the name.
But
I guess
we'll have to pay Birdsong a visit in the next couple of weeks to circumvent our inability to go this week and just, I mean, we've been there before, went to their 6-year anniversary and hung out and all that stuff, but we'll need to go and chat them up a little bit and see what they have to say about this and just life in general over there. But I will tell you a little bit about Birdsong, unless you have anything else more to tell me about this beer.
nah. I mean, other than it'll drink.
Will it?
Yeah.
We were supposed to come up with a better rating scale for this season. Clearly, we were on the ball, guys. We do not have a better
Yeah, it'll
rating
drink.
scale.
I don't think you need another one.
That's what we can put on these walls. We can put the it'll drink and it won't drink sides.
Ooh, that'd be ruthless.
And we just start taking the labels off and sticking them on the wall. So, Birdsong was conceptualized in 2010, and it was
One of the OGs, I guess. Uh-huh.
I mean, because OMB was 09, right? Yeah, so they officially opened in 2011, but conceptualized in 2010, where this couple, they were both just ready to like leave their jobs and start something fresh, and one of the wives' coworkers was learning homebrewing, and they all got together and they were like, yeah, let's do this. Made it a thing.
What, homebrewing came before this?
Nuh-uh. I know. It's crazy, right?
It's like railroads in a town.
It's crazy.
Post offices.
So they all got together, talked it all through, made a business plan, and in April of 2011, maybe not April is for something else. In 2011, Birdsong officially opened with just 2 full-time employees. April 2015 is when they opened their new tap room, and the rest is history.
You didn't put down when they put their solar panels up?
If you would give me a minute, I got stuff to say, homie.
They like their solar panels.
Rude. One of those people that helped start the brewery, besides this couple and the home brewer himself, was a woman, which I'm losing, named Michelle LeBeau.
Sounds fancy.
Mm-hmm. And she basically just walked up to them and said, "So you're going to include me in this business or not?" And just like, "I'm here, I'm in it, let's make this happen." Straight shooter, really well known for encouraging and intelligence and all these great traits. Mm-hmm. And she ended up, I want to make sure I say this right. She had medullary thyroid carcinoma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds awful.
Yep. And in 2011, she founded the React Thyroid Foundation to raise awareness and research for this rare form of cancer. And for 5 years, she battled this cancer and ended up passing away in June of 2015. So just 2 months after that new tap room opened. So she did at least get to kind of be around for that. But they specifically call her out on their website, and they want to make sure that her legacy lives on and hope that she can bring some inspiration to people who are struggling and kind of encourage them to never give up. But she was part of the founding team and all of that. So I just thought it was important to bring her up and let her legacy live on the way they wanted her to. But Birdsong, their name came from these couple of guys that helped start this brewery all went on a trip to Asheville. Mm-hmm. And they stayed together in this really tiny little hostel-like situation. And I believe it's the head brewer ended up snoring in such a strange way that it sounded like a sparrow. So much that they literally thought there was a bird trapped in their room. Like they were looking for a bird.
I don't even know what that means.
And so the next morning, they all sat down and kind of pitched the idea, and the name Birdsong was born. So that's how this brewery is named, from the head brewer's sleeping habits. Yes. Oh, that was great.
Hold on. Let's see what sparrows sound like.
Chirp, chirp. Wait for it. Ads.
Gosh dang it. Freaking YouTube.
Well, that's what you get for trying to off the cuff add in a soundbite from the YouTubes.
Yeah. We'll probably just put in a sparrow sound right here.
Oh, there you go. Put that up to the mic. I mean, I have no idea how you snore like that. I mean, I'm impressed.
Okay.
I am impressed.
Yeah, I'm not.
No idea.
I need to witness that.
Yeah, I have no idea.
To understand.
Now you're just going to creep on him and be like, "I need to see you sleep." It's not creepy at all.
I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, please don't. But yes, that's how they named it. And one partially because of Michelle and just their general priorities as a lead team. They're very into charitable contributions, obviously more focused on the Charlotte area, but happy to work with anybody. And they work with nonprofits that go for sustainability, arts and culture, community development, water and conservation and preservation, environmental causes, and animal rescue. So a pretty decent array of things there. But with that, they're very, very into local sourcing and energy saving and recycling and all of that. So they 100% of their spent grain and their peanut shells are utilized by local cattle farms. Their cans are recycled aluminum, which is apparently infinitely recyclable. And they said that the industry average is it takes approximately 8 gallons of water to brew 1 gallon of beer. And they have worked their system so that they only use 4 gallons for every one.
Okay.
80% of their production is draft beer because kegs are returned to the brewery. So there's no throwaway packaging as we sit here and drink out of the cans. Sorry, guys.
That we're going to throw away.
I'm sorry, guys. We'll recycle them. Your face is rude. And
I don't even know how to recycle.
wow. Birdsong. Teach this boy a thing or two. And so, yes, the solar panels have come in recently. I don't have the year here. They didn't put that on their website, but I do remember reading the article when it came out. So I would give it
last few years,
2-3 years ago. They put these solar panels up. So it's a 75 watt, 220 panel solar system. Reduces their contribution to carbon emissions and coal ash that can harm the earth. But so they're doing everything they can to make everything be as sustainable as possible and renewable. And they just gonna tweet as they sleep all day. Yeah, I don't know. I do not understand how that becomes a snore. But nonetheless, that's what I've got on Birdsong. Very environmentally conscious, very community focused, very much involved in empowering people to push forward. And they make a good hazy IPA, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll drink. So I guess we're going to be talking about Uptown.
Yes.
While they may not be officially in Uptown, they are at the moment our closest. Mm-hmm. And we have not done Uptown yet.
There's not exactly an easy way for us to get into there. And with so many people being in the kind of Noda Plaza area and Birdsong being the closest to Uptown, we're using this as an avenue to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll probably do this more often.
If we get
neighborhoods that are close, because I don't think you want to hear 13 episodes in Plaza Midwood. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe you do.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff to tell, but yes, we want to make sure we get a chance to cover all the areas. And I mean, how do you ignore Uptown for a Charlotte podcast?
Truth.
So what do you have for us?
Well, since we're talking about Uptown, you may have noticed that there are no oceanfront properties.
What?
In Uptown.
Nuh-uh.
Did you see that?
I don't believe that.
There's no ocean. Well,
I don't believe it.
No ocean, but there was a Confederate Navy shipyard in Charlotte.
Huh.
And that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Okay.
So in March 1862.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it looks like Gosport.
Okay.
Or Gosport Yard.
Okay.
It's a Confederate Navy yard that was in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay. Was at risk of being captured by Union forces. After the battle of the USS Monitor and the CSS Merrimack, so USS being the Federal Union forces.
And then a Confederate.
Is the CSS. The Merrimack was actually lost during this battle between the two ironclads. And seeing how that happened, they felt like Norfolk may fall soon after. And it was home to that Gosport yard where they made a lot of their ship parts. And so they knew they had to move it. Two Confederate officers, Captain Murdaugh and Captain Parker.
I was like, Murdoch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Made their way to Charlotte in late April and met with, think of the time frame, John Wilkes.
Hey, as I choke on beer. All right.
He is not the John Wilkes Booth.
Nuh-uh.
But maybe we can make up a conspiracy.
Yes, I like those. Those are fun.
Wilkes had actually served with the two captains in the U.S. Navy prior to the Civil War.
Okay.
And had recently purchased a property on East Trade Street. The property appealed to Confederate leaders because Charlotte was 200 miles from the ocean, which doesn't seem to make any sense.
That makes zero sense to me.
But they knew it would be far out of reach for the Union Navy.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
So they're like, why would they go looking on how to hurt the Navy in Charlotte, I guess.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, kind of strange. The property had a railroad already running through it. So they had access to the North Carolina Railroad and the South Carolina Railroad, aptly named.
Nuh-uh.
And so that was able to connect that property to several seaboard cities, including Charleston and Savannah. So they just make the stuff and ship it, I reckon.
Sure.
After the officers reported that the property would work, the Confederacy quickly purchased the site. I do purchased because you'll find out later.
Okay.
The equipment was immediately
acquired,
shipped.
Perhaps is a better term.
Yeah.
I don't know the story.
But they knew the dude, so it's kind of strange. Equipment from Norfolk was immediately shipped to Charlotte. And that same month, they started production. So May 1862.
Okay.
Now, when I heard naval yard or shipyard, I thought they would be making boats.
Sure. But
they ended up just making parts for boats.
Okay.
I was a little let down. That'd have been cool to just ship whole boats. Like down to PD River or something.
Yeah.
I guess the PD doesn't run through there. Catawba River.
There's water somewhere.
Yeah. Rivers.
We'll make it work.
Rivers. They go to the ocean, right? Isn't that how that works?
Sort
of. So the products of the yard include marine engines, rifle shells, torpedoes, gun carriages, solid shot, heavy forgings, and projectiles, which seems like that is also rifle shells and torpedoes and solid shot. But, okay.
What's solid shot?
I guess it's just like a cannonball.
Okay.
Type deal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
An employee named Thomas Dwyer actually built a machine that made perfectly round spheres, improving the production of cannonballs and the marksmanship of the artillery.
Okay.
I mean, having a perfectly round ball is pretty important when flying through the air, I'd imagine. You don't want it going every which way.
Yep. Friction and wind drafts and all the things. Yes.
Yep. Yes, science. Until November 1864, the Charlotte Naval Yard experienced fewer effects of the war than any other Navy yard. I mean,
what? No way.
Strange.
Surely not. Being 200 miles. Is that right? Did I just pull that out of
200 miles. Yep.
200 miles from the ocean. And
they didn't see any
shocker.
Many negative effects.
Yes. Sure.
The production, though, was significantly stunted because of a shortage of skilled labor. So Charlotte only had a population of like 3,000 at the time, and not many people knew how to make boat things.
Sure.
They did bring down some people from Norfolk that were working up there, but it still wasn't enough to produce the way they wanted to, I guess.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No. Oh, beer. Always time for beer. I was going to say it'd be cool if I realize you're talking 1860s. So it's a 50-year difference. But it'd be cool if we could just look at this map that's sitting up here behind you and like, oh, let's follow these waterways. Oh, let's follow this like path of stuff. Like, it's kind of a nifty tool to have for future. You were talking about populations as well, and there was a couple of maps I was looking at some point that
had the population numbers,
and so that's what I'm thinking, and I'm sitting here looking like, oh, where were we at? Like, I'm seeing numbers down here at the bottom in the legend, and so I'm just trying to see if, like, in that 50 years where we kind of grew or not, but I don't think we have that directly
population
on here.
67,000. So
a little different.
50 years, they added over 60,000 people.
A little different.
Yeah.
All right, then. Carry on.
During the war, it kind of changed the dynamics around the naval shipyard a bit. One cool story I saw was a few shops popped up like across the street from the naval shipyard selling like nautical gear and goods. And one of the shops just sold sailcloth.
Oh, okay.
And one night, a lot of their inventory went missing.
Ruh-roh.
Shortly thereafter, a lot of men were showing up in Uptown Charlotte dressed in clothing that seemed, very familiar and a lot like sailcloth.
Yikes.
So that's pretty. I don't know if I've
So the question
really know
is,
what sailcloth looks like.
Yeah, but the question is, did they steal it and go finagle and sew it, or did their wives get crafty and make some thievery?
Or just the Uptown tailor. Surely
You're not wrong.
they had somebody that made clothes in
Sure.
Uptown. And he's just like, hey, free cloth. But I thought that was a cool little story.
Yeah,
I'd like to
I dig
have
that.
had a picture of
What that looked like.
what that looked like.
Totally agree.
Because I have no clue. And how it
I'm
would
just
be
imagining
distinctive.
something that's almost like canvas.
Yeah.
Like just the clothing made out of canvas is what my brain
And
immediately
as big
came
as
up with.
sailcloths need to be, I see them as parachute pants.
Also, yes. I picture a canvas like material, but yeah, like MC Hammer type pants and
They did use the word Uptown gentleman.
ooh.
So I assume they were made into suits.
Yes.
But
Now I'm just picturing the mask in like a white tux, but like canvasy white.
yeah. So like a light tan. Mm-hmm. When the war ended, the Navy Yard was seized by federal troops after the 9th New Jersey Infantry marched into Charlotte in May 1865. Freaking New Jersey.
Always
That's
freaking
like
New Jersey.
That's like now. All them people from up north moving down.
Hush.
Season stuff.
Hush on the Northerners, but I totally agree from the Jersey perspective. I guess apologies to anybody from New Jersey, but I'm from Pennsylvania and I'm right there on the Delaware Water Gap where we're like a mile from the Delaware River and therefore Jersey. And
Hey, Washington's been there, right?
And yeah, if ever I was going to be like prejudice is the right word. I was going to say racist or something, but that doesn't make sense. But if I was ever going to be prejudiced against something, it's Jersey, and that's just all comes with the territory of living in the tri-state up there. But I guess sorry, Jersey, but I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah. Well, you remember how I said he, air quotes, purchased the land?
Yes.
Or the Confederates, air quotes, purchased the land
Yes.
from John Wilkes, not Booth. Well, John Wilkes, not Booth, was allowed to buy back the land from the federal government because the Confederates never paid him for it.
Oh.
See, that's where it seems
So they made an agreement, but yeah.
See, that's where it seems strange to me. They allowed him to buy it back because he never was paid for it.
Did they make
But I
him
feel
pay
like-
for it?
Yeah. They said they made a fair offer to John Wilkes. So
That is
yeah.
terrible.
But what seems strange is that if he would have been paid for it, he may not have been able to buy it back.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it should be the other way, that if the Confederates didn't pay him, then the federal government should kind of see it as
Compensate
like a
him.
favor.
Yeah, and compensate him.
No, the opposite. He was doing a favor for the Confederates, thus making him a Confederate supporter, thus not allowing him to buy back his land. Kind
I
of like a
see.
war crimes type
Yeah,
deal.
I see what you're saying.
So that all seems a little strange. I don't know how it worked.
Yeah.
But he took advantage of all the equipment that was just left there and established Mecklenburg Iron Works.
Hey, okay.
It operated until 1875, so for 10 years until it burned. Mm-hmm. It just says burned.
Burnt.
Like, I don't know if it burned down or what, but it burned.
It was just a big bonfire
Just
for a little bit.
scald.
Yeah.
Light scalding.
Yeah.
But he ended up moving Mecklenburg Iron Works across the street. And later on, I didn't get the year, but Seaboard Airline Railways
Nuh-uh.
bought the property and turned it into a freight station.
Nuh-uh. I love how things come together.
Yep, utilizing the railroad just like the fine folks of the Confederate government was utilizing it for freight.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
And this day, we in this day now, something almost a complete opposite from a Confederate naval yard stands there, and that would be the epicenter.
Hey.
So apparently,
that is very different.
Yep. They've had a couple plaques on walls.
Do they?
Around there?
Okay.
I'm not sure what they have now. They put one up in like 1910 on what was ever there at the time, and then replaced it in 1955. And then I don't know what's there. I've seen like some like recent stories from folks. Like, I'm gonna link the Charlotte Museum of History article about this.
I also have one of those from my story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go figure.
But it seems like there may be something there now. I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah, and it's hard to really confirm that because they don't let you take cameras into Epicenter. Like, they won't let you take photos.
We've been yelled at before.
Why? I don't understand that. I get that they have like, I could maybe even see like a time frame where once it gets to evening hours, because they pay people to come and take photographs and then you have to like pay them for it. It's like if you go to Disney or something where, so like I get that per se, if you're part of the nightlife.
Yeah, we
but
were there at like 3.
Right. If you're there in the daytime, the afternoon. Yes.
I know people there at 3 a.m. probably,
But yeah, if you're there at a normal daytime hour, why can I not take a picture of the location or something?
Yeah. I mean, the security guard was very nice.
Yes.
Just told us
they're not rude about it, but yeah.
You know.
But why? Why those rules like that? Anyway.
But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, obviously I know we're talking about Uptown, but the whole time you're talking, my brain is just imagining like Camp North End or Camp Green or something like that we've talked about in the past. And so I just still, out of habit, imagine it outside of Center City. And then Epicenter.
Yeah, so if you've been to the Epicenter, you have stepped on old Civil War property that's got some deep history, strange history. I mean, you wouldn't imagine the Navy setting up in Charlotte, but they did. And it's kind of cool.
I like it. Awesome. So
that's that.
Cool. Fair enough. So I am, of course, even though it's been a few weeks and we may forget our patterns, I'm going to give us a quick little rundown of Uptown history and information. And then I'll dive into my story.
Woo.
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Let me hear all of your excitement.
Woo.
Okay, so a little bit about Uptown.
Okay.
So first,
I'm gonna pour some beer.
Yeah, there's like a sip in that. Would you like a new? Would you like a new can? This is called like ASMR. He's gonna click that can around.
Sure.
Crack you another one.
Sorry.
You're fine.
I can handle it though. You
as
can
much
continue.
As we've realized that this is a beer pod or a history podcast, there is still beer involved. As much as we kind of ignore it in the audio. If you're watching the video, obviously we're still drinking it and kind of engaged with it, but it's hard to do that just audio wise. So Uptown, first of all, why is it called Uptown versus Downtown? It's been kind of, at least in my sphere, I feel like has been kind of a common point of discussion in the last few years, but maybe it's not yours. So just a quick overview. Historically speaking, sure, why not? Historically speaking, Trade and Tryon streets were trade routes, and they came together, and it was the highest point of elevation in the town.
Hold on. Trade Street was a trade route?
I know.
No way.
So, historically, highest point of elevation, and so it was called Uptown. City grew around it. Had a season where it was then kind of just out of human nature called Downtown, because we tend to call cities downtown. And then in 1987, started prior to that, but there was a push to bring that history back and reclaim the Uptown name. One, as a sort of rebranding of the city to make it more clean and renovated and sound less kind of grimy downtown shady avenue. But the rebranding was meant to bring more light to it, I guess. But it was also bringing back those cultural roots. And so in February 14th of 1987, the Charlotte Observer first in print began using the term Uptown again. And there was a lot of push from a lot of people in the community. And so that became the, I guess, official stance from then on out.
Does it say, and you may be getting this, when they're going to change the signs and stuff, like officially do it?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I feel like I remember that in like elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
It like the kind of like all of a sudden it was, I mean, because I live 40 miles east.
Sure.
So like I went there every day and it just felt like all of a sudden it was
Uptown.
changed to Uptown.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that was like elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Because, yeah, I mean, if it officially like
mid-90s.
on paper in
90s.
the 87, I could see that. You know, taking a couple years to really take progress. And I've seen a lot of articles by, you know, local sort of news outlets. I say sort of because they're providing news and information, but also a lot of opinion pieces and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know what they...
They're not traditional.
Right. I don't know what they technically deem themselves, but I've seen a lot of different media outlets that kind of interview people and talk to them and have done the like, you know, here's a quick quiz for you. Why is it called Uptown? And people give all kinds of ridiculous answers. And some of them say, like, I know it's Uptown, but I still call it downtown. Like, I'm in open rebellion. I'm going to call it downtown. So it just kind of is what it is. And as much as the culture has shifted, there's still always going to just be people doing their thing.
Downtown is Uptown. Uptown is downtown.
Right. It's the same. People know what you're talking about. It's just I don't know.
We're talking inside the 277 loop.
Correct.
That's what we're talking about. Uptown, downtown.
It's all there.
It's okay if somebody doesn't call it what you call it.
You're not wrong. So going back to a little more of history, Uptown, primarily based off of those two main trading paths, Trade Street and Tryon Street. Since at least the early 1700s, it's two actual Native American paths. It was at the top of a ridge. One major path connected was Salisbury and the Great Wagon Road to Pennsylvania. Carolina and Pennsylvania, attached since early on. I'm a fan.
Gross.
A similar path led east to Tuskegee Ford and the Catawba River. By the 1750s, Scots, Irish, and German settlers were looking to go south. From Pennsylvania and Maryland on the Great Wagon Road. Thomas Polk, whose great nephew became president, built a
James
house.
K.
Built a house right there on the intersection. A lot of different cabins, taverns, all kinds of things. Elevated wooden courthouse stood all on that square of that intersection. Right now, that's like the primary focus of the history walk in Charlotte and a lot of things present day. Something I thought was interesting, just continuing through history, is, you know, we built up as a banking city and all of that kind of commerce and different styles because we originally started out as a mill village and all of these, it was Indian trading paths and then a mill village and then it slowly built into this banking community. And from there, it became this like flourishing, thriving city. And we had Belk and, I need to look at my list to see what's actually Woolworth and Eckerd and all kinds of different big name now companies kind of starting out there.
Yeah. And
over time, all of these bankers and everything became more not inclusive is not the right word. They kind of came in on themselves. And so they started building these like skyways where you can go now and you can walk without ever actually stepping foot on this city sidewalks. You can walk through these little
like go from building to building.
Right.
Almost.
They've got the skywalks over the roads and all that kind of stuff. And so the banking community kind of turned inward and stayed in their own little hubs and didn't spend a lot of time out on the streets. And so then all of these big name stores started to crumble. And so they started moving outside of Center City. And the actual city roads themselves started to get real seedy and shady. And I think that's kind of where we shift into this, quote, downtown era, if you will. And so now you start getting all the like illicit type of activity going on. And so the streets around the square earned a shady and seedy reputation.
What does seedy even mean? I don't understand
Shady.
that.
I mean,
It's the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like I imagine somebody, you know, opening their coat and being like, "Hey, man, want to buy a watch?" Like that kind of a thing. But Trade Street storefronts became dive bars and adult movie theaters. And a few blocks to the west, prowlers and prostitution made nightly rounds. Something I thought was really interesting was a common phrase during that time period, which is, we're talking like 70s, 80s here. Nope, late 80s. I lied. So in this time period, a common phrase that just really depicted the whole illicit activity there was, if you can't trade on try-on, then try on trade. So like if your banking's not working on try-on, go get you some other things over on trade. And I just thought that was, one, word nerd, so I appreciate the pun of it all. But I just think that's so interesting of kind of the extremes we're looking at there. And so another thing about trade and try-on, they kind of crisscross the city, especially with 277 surrounding it, cuts us into 4 distinctive sections, which we now call wards. So we've got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ward. 1st ward is once was considered one of the most dangerous areas in Charlotte, but now has become a much more distinctive area. It has it's got the Uptown campus of UNC Charlotte. It has the main library, Spirit Square, Blumenthal Performing Arts, Imagine on Children's Learning Center, Levine Museum of the New South, Spectrum Center with the Hornets, and so on and so forth. So it's become now this great kind of cultural section when it used to be very seedy. We have the 2nd ward, which has the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Flame. It has Duke Energy headquarters, a lot of Victorian Gothic style architecture, including St. Peter's Catholic Church, Charlotte Convention Center, so on there. 3rd ward has the Mint Museum, several other museums, Carolina Stadium, Panther Stadium.
We call it BOA here.
Yeah. Bank of America Stadium. They can, and it's got Knight Stadium there as well. Where's my little note?
4th ward.
They call it a streetcar neighborhood because it also has like the Lynx lines, the Lynx Red Line and the Lynx Silver Line and the Cats bus hub are all kind of grounded in that ward. And the 4th ward is actually a almost entirely historic district with a lot of Victorian homes. It's got the Old Settlers Cemetery, 4th Ward Park, and it's cemeteries. Yeah, it's a very distinctive kind of section up there. So trade and try and make that nice little crisscross for us. And something that I thought was really cool historically with that, how I said we had Polk built his house, we had the courthouse, we had historically all of this kind of commerce and everything before we really became a banking city. And so they said that farmers settled disputes at the courthouse, then they would go and trade goods at the market, and then they would share news over whiskey over at James Jack's Tavern, which was actually called Pat Jack's Tavern. And
that doesn't make any sense, but okay. Patriot what? Jack?
No.
Pat.
Oh, Pat is his father.
Okay.
So Pat Jack's, it was his tavern, but him and the son and the mother all kind of ran it together.
Okay.
So it would be like calling it D Gold's Tavern and then your kid running it type of deal. Like that's why it was called Pat Jack's. But this area is known for kind of all of these revolutionary tendencies, all of this anti-British sentiment, all of that. And they ultimately named that other trading path, Tryon, after after William Tryon, the British royal governor in that area.
Yeah.
But he was well respected and all of that. But it's just, I thought that was, according to this blurb,
article.
Yes. He was well thought of in the area, at least in the way that he treated people. I can't say like, yes, he still represented the crown. Yes, there's whatever, but it's one of those like,
I think that's...
You can be biased against a group of people and still find someone to be at least like, look, I'm in a bad situation, but I'll do the best I can in the situation while still kind of being a jerk because I have to be. So you can kind of respect them to a certain degree.
If I remember correctly, William Tryon is the guy that our Gaston County folk over when we did Belmont did not like.
Fair enough.
And that's why they had not necessarily split off, but they made their militia. And I think he was a main reason for them being, you know, why we talked about them.
Nonetheless, and that was kind of why they thought it was so strange that they decided to name this huge trading path and significant road after him. Was to a certain degree he was well thought of, to whatever degree that can be. Yeah. But obviously still represented everything that they were super against. Yeah. So it's just a very interesting kind of juxtaposition of...
Yeah, it could have been a great dude.
Yeah. And that's what...
Some British dude.
Right.
So
I have no real concept of what that looks like, but it was just a very interesting tidbit that that's where the name came from, and it wasn't even necessarily some forceful, like, I mean, we're called Charlotte, so let's consider that also. Yeah. I mean, there's so much British influence, even with all the rebelliousness that our neighborhood is known for. But with that...
Well, I know that's your transition. But I had seen in some stuff that I looked up of other places called Uptown.
Tell me.
And I like Googled it while you were talking to double check.
You weren't listening to me talking?
I was listening.
You lie?
I can do two things
As I tell you almost every episode that I don't listen when you tell me about the beer.
I can do two things at once though.
I can't.
So Uptown, Memphis, New Orleans, and Manhattan.
Favorite city not to live in. Manhattan.
Yeah. Those three are also called Uptown.
Interesting.
That's, just quick Google. That's what I found.
So you don't know why?
Given that tidbit. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I assume it's the same reason. I think you're going
elevation.
Up. Yeah.
That's cool. I did not know that about New Orleans. I very much love New Orleans. It's my favorite city stateside to visit. I love the culture there. I love the history there. Charlotte is definitely my favorite city to live in, but great city to visit. It's really interesting in my opinion. So,
did you know it was called Uptown there?
I did not, but I've gone 4 or 5 times maybe, and every
French
time,
Quarter.
The majority of the time I've spent has been in the French Quarter. Branch out into like the Garden District and some of that kind of stuff. But I've usually ended up going basically by myself. And so I just kind of get a cab to drop me off in the French Quarter, and anything I can do on foot where I still feel relatively safe being a female by myself is where I try to stick to. So I haven't explored it nearly as much as I'd like. But so the actual city part I've not really been in.
I think the key factor in all 4 of those is, other than Charlotte, is the proximity to water. Is that they kind of have to be uptown. Yeah. So like Memphis has Mississippi River. Is that right?
Maybe.
Between Tennessee and Arkansas.
That sounds great.
Yeah, Memphis
Geography
is right
is
on the
not
border.
my best.
I think it's Mississippi River.
I mean, I know a good bit of geography, but like rivers and stuff
Manhattan,
is not my...
I mean, there's water all around it. Yeah. It's got to be, like, as you go further inland, you're getting higher
That
in
might
elevation.
also be not an elevation thing, but that might be a, like, latitude thing. That may be a, up is not the correct term. It's a north type of thing. That might be Manhattan.
Yeah.
because like Long Island is like, all of that is very long. So it could be that. I might be wrong, but also makes sense in the like same type of context.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you good?
Just
I do it all day, every day.
we're not the only strange ones.
Sure.
I call it Uptown.
Well, I mean, what's the difference between Uptown and downtown? Why downtown? Why is downtown normal and Uptown not?
And I think it's because of New York. Like I think New York started the downtown thing.
I could see that. I don't know. Anyway, so I feel like this was the easy route to go in terms of a story, but also, and we've mentioned before how many times we've kind of mentioned this, but never really dove into it. So I wanted to just, if we're going to acknowledge Uptown, really acknowledge kind of some of the real like foundational pieces of it. So I'm going to give us a little bit of information about our dear friend, Captain James Jack.
I think this will be the third time
at least
mentioned him.
At least, yes.
We mentioned him during OMB. We did somebody that had a statue.
Yes.
On that walk in Midtown or wherever it is. He has a statue there, and we mentioned that. And then now.
It's at least 3. It may have been more, but for sure that I can also remember 3. But I would like to also point out that Captain James Jack is a Pennsylvania native. Love it.
Nobody cares.
I care. He just called me a nobody, y'all. That's what happened. So James Jack was the son of an Irish immigrant, Patrick Jack. His father was first settled in Pennsylvania, and in 1760 they moved to North Carolina. This is just kind of the real quick overview. James then married Margaret Houston in 1766 in Mecklenburg County, and they had 5 kids, 4 sons and a daughter. For whoever's keeping track.
It's 5. I did the math.
Oh, I was like, what?
You said keeping track.
So Patrick himself was the oldest of 9, which sounds like a lot, but also in that time, that's super normal. His parents were Patrick and Lillis McAdoo Jack. Of an area just outside of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. So to me, that means something. I know
never
it doesn't
heard of her.
It also said that his grandfather may have been Reverend William Jack of the Logan. Totally butchered
Kenny
that.
Loggins?
No idea. I don't know what that means. It's some joke. I don't know what that means. Of Logan Presbytery in Northern Ireland, who was removed from the benefice by Charles II for nonconformity to the Church of England. That may have been his grandfather.
So they've been outlaws. For
They're
years.
troublemakers.
Yep.
So Patrick moved the family from Pennsylvania to North Carolina because of the French and Indian War. Kind of forced him out. They were living west of Salisbury in, maybe you know this word, I do not, in Thyatira?
Who?
Thyatira.
That's not a place, guys. That's wrong.
Check our map. It is west of Salisbury, so let's just leave it at that. One of the first Presbyterian communities.
Statesville?
West of the Yadkin River. His father had bought the lots on the south side of West Trade Street, and there Jack and his elderly parents built a house in which they operated a tavern called Pat Jack's.
Okay.
And
so his dad did start it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was like the 3 of them, like, it says Jack and his elderly parents built a tavern. So it may have been the parent, like, because the parents bought the land.
The funders.
Yes, they bought the land. Maybe Jack put it together and they were elderly and he kind of like commemorated his dad in the whole process. As a benefactor, as apparent as whatever.
I feel like that's a good selling point. Like, I want to do this thing. I want you to pay for it.
But it's
and you'll have a tavern named after you. And they're like,
you got it.
All right.
Maybe.
Can I drink for free?
Of course. So ultimately through time, like we said, when we were talking about trade and try-on, people would go to the courthouse, settle their disputes, go do their shopping, and then go to the tavern. And so the tavern was known to have many, many meetings of these kind of rebellious group and starting to set the stage for revolution and things to come. So ultimately, James was chosen to be captain of a local militia. And they heard that there was resentment and tension running high in the colonies. And let me find the specific. I've read through so many different articles, and because they're all so similar, the little tidbits that I know I've read, I have just like lost in the blur. But there was a battle. I don't think I have in my notes. I'm also, for anybody who's not watching the video, I have switched from my traditional paper notebook to a little iPad, and it's totally throwing me off. I'm a paper girl. But there was a big battle that happened up, I want to say in Maryland. It was very bloody and like kind of lit the fire for these revolutionary things to really hit home. And so that led to everybody kind of freaking out for
and Antietam.
No, that's Pennsylvania.
I feel like I know it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wish I had this in my notes, but ultimately they decided to draft these, what is now known as the MECDEC, these Mecklenburg Declarations, ultimately calling for some sort of independence from Britain. And our good boy, James Jack, offered himself up to transport back to his hometown and traveled from Charlotte up to Philly to the Continental Congress. And this is where historians have a lot of debate over specifically what those declarations said, because there's actually no debate that the declarations existed. It's what they specifically called for. And this part of this debate comes from there's no actual written record of them. And we have a lot of things that seem like we do, but
especially here.
Right. A lot of this comes down to almost like urban legends and after the fact retellings, and then it starts to get a lot of gray area. But as historians have disputed what the resolutions actually said, some think it was a complete declaration of independence, and others say that it was just anti-British resolutions that were slightly less important, but saying like, yo, we have a problem with a lot of things versus we're done here type of a situation. But they're not arguing that they did exist and that this event did happen. Mm-hmm. So May 20th, 1775 is MECDEC Day, and we have our good boy James Jack, who rode 38 days round trip on a, they said it's approximately 560 miles from Charlotte to Philly on this route that he is thought to have taken.
It's not as bad as I would have imagined, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, currently in a vehicle, a motorized vehicle from Charlotte to Philly is about 9 hours.
Yeah, but you got to ride a horse.
Right. But I'm saying...
A horse gets tired.
So, we're talking, 19 days one way? Mm-hmm. Something we can do in 10 hours now, we can do in 19 days then? Like, that seems normal. Like, that seems like a fair comparison.
Yeah, but I mean, people talk about going into town takes a week.
Well,
a day.
Depends on where they're living and if they're just riding one person on a horse on a mad dash, or if they're like, all right, let's hitch up the whole wagon and bring all the kids. And like,
yes.
you know, I mean, even today, like, oh, I need to run to the store. I can go hop in my car and be there and back in 10 minutes. Where if I've got a couple of kids, it's like, all right, let me pack up their bag. Let me do all this crap. And something that should have taken 10 minutes now takes an hour. And so in that time, if you've just got one dude hopping on a horse and taking off, knowing the importance of what it is and he needs to get there fast, 19 days isn't long versus a family that needs to get to town and load up the wagon and...
I guess.
But nonetheless.
And it might have been like 12 days one way, 27 the other.
I mean, yeah, very possible.
26 the other.
Very possible. And they don't have exacts on that because they don't have the same records of his return trip because it was sort of less important. But
True.
They approximate 38 days in total for an approximately 1,100 mile trip.
Mm-hmm. He was back for that non-English church service about this day, so 38 days.
So they said that Jack's ride was long, lonesome, and perilous. However, the big thing was that British authorities, as high as the royal governor himself, had gotten word of Jack's mission. And I didn't know this part previously, so I thought this was interesting. So they were already on the lookout for him. And had he been found out and discovered and had these papers on him, he would have immediately been hanged for treason. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that they were already aware of it and kind of watching for him, which, you know, the danger of carrying such a document, period, is crazy, let alone everybody's aware that you're carrying it and now on the lookout for you. Like, yeah, that's nuts. So there was a letter from the royal governor in August of 1775 that noted that he had been informed of treasonable resolves that had been sent off by express to the Congress at Philadelphia as soon as they were passed in the committee. Indeed, in that same letter, he said, the resolves of the Committee of Mecklenburg, which your lordship will find in the enclosed newspaper, surpass all the horrid and treasonable publications that the inflammatory spirits of this continent have yet produced. So they weren't happy about that.
What?
And so Jack makes his way up to the Continental Congress. He talks to the North Carolina reps, basically, who are in the area. Says, here's what we've got. We're ready. Let's do this thing. They take a day and they say, okay, let's mull over this type of thing. They come back the next day. And they say that basically they told him that it all sounds good, but it's a little premature with just kind of the state of everything in the country so far. Like, we don't disagree with it. We think it's great, but the country's just not quite ready. Because, I mean, we're a full year before the actual Declaration of Independence is being written. So it was kind of this precursor to all of that happening, obviously. And so they actually, the North Carolina folk that were represented in this Continental Congress, did not pass those on to the rest of the Congress like they were asked to do. But they probably, speculation all around, probably use that as fodder throughout the next year to help push the agenda of independence. But yes, they did not pass it on the way that they were requested to. The cool thing to add into Jack's repertoire is that his response to them was supposedly, quote, I don't know how much you can quote something like this, but he said, gentlemen, you may debate here about reconciliation. So part of the debate was, we think it's premature because also, as much as they wanted independence as a country, they were still trying to sort of work things out with Britain. Mm-hmm. And so we were still in this sort of, let's maybe figure it out. We can reconcile. It'll be great. But he comes back and says, gentlemen, you may debate here about reconciliation and memorialize your king, but bear it in mind that Mecklenburg owes no allegiance to and is separated from the crown of Great Britain forever. So he basically said, like, that's cool. If y'all want to make peace, that's fine. But we're done here. We've cut out. We are who we are. Good luck to you. And rock on to him for that. So 43 years old. He was said to be very popular in his company. In the Mecklenburg militia, he didn't often accept promotions. And then in September of 1780, when Cornwallis occupied Charlotte, which is where we get that whole hornet's nest thing from, it says that British troops dragged his ailing father from bed and he died not longer after. So that sucks.
Pat. Mm-hmm. No.
They killed Pat, in essence. The home was burned to the ground, and the tavern was eventually rebuilt. And ultimately, he was meant to be reimbursed for wartime expenditures, which may be partly for the burning of his tavern. It may be partially for his trip up and back, all of that. And it was given, basically, you know, like a banknote or whatever, was given to a friend of his. That friend never made it to him. He was killed in process. And so that money just was like kind of floating out there to whoever knows got it. But really, money wasn't his shtick anyway, so it didn't really matter. And he basically said, you know, I've been part of the Revolutionary War from very start to very finish. Slightly after his trip to provide the mech deck and all of that, he came back and married his wife. They had their 5 kids. And then near the end of his life, they moved to Georgia and stayed with one of his sons. And that's where they spent the last of their days. And he died in December of 1822. And then you can find in several places online where they have the obituary that came out in almost an entire month later on January 17th, 1823. I'm a fan. That's my birthday. Not 1823.
Whoa, you old.
You know it. And so he died in Elbert County, Georgia. And his kind of passion and fervor for revolution, not for revolution, but for the freedom and independence and everything that they were fighting for, that was kind of passed down to his kids. And so many of them got involved in the military and a lot of different campaigns that way. And then today, we now have Jack's image in the Charlotte Liberty Walk, like I was saying, at that Trade and Tryon intersection. And then you've got a lot of kind of placards cemented into the ground as you walk through. And so he is in there. And then what we had, probably is why we had mentioned it, is the May 20th Society. That's a real thing. That's pretty cool. We need to hang out with them. In 2010, they added a statue of him in the Trail of History on 4th Street and Kings Drive. And so it's a statue of him riding his horse through this.
Yeah. If you live in this area, you've seen pictures of it at least.
And then we have this nice little
trail map.
Yeah, trail map of what they expected his ride to look like. It's actually very similar to the drive that I would take to go to Pennsylvania. It looks very much, for anybody who's familiar with Interstate 81.
Looks like you go through the mountains for no reason.
I mean, kind of. But, I mean, yeah, on horseback, I can't imagine that, because in a car, it gets a little rough when you get into Virginia there. But, I mean, it's beautiful. But,
yeah,
I mean, it looks very similar to my Interstate 81 path to go up and visit home. But
yeah.
So that's Captain James Jack. That is our revolutionary foundations here in the Charlotte area. Mm-hmm. And obviously he's going to come up 10,000 more times.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was cool to take a little deeper dive and to know that someone so important to our city came from Pennsylvania.
I'm still trying to figure out why they picked a tavern owner to ride this thing up. That just seems random.
You're not wrong. So let me look. I had a note here also. The French and Indian War is what drove them down here.
Yes.
And then his father bought those lots, and then
Yes. We heard all
the
this.
years that followed, Jack became prosperous enough to speculate in Charlotte real estate, was appointed a tax collector and an overseer of the poor in the county of Mecklenburg.
Jack was or Pat was?
Jack was.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, Jack is their last name, but they're talking about James Jack.
James, yeah. Pat or James.
Yes. So he kind of financially was invested in a lot of the community. He oversaw the poor and the like neediest in the community. He comes from a family that's very kind of anti-establishment, and from day one of the revolution starting, he joined. And so he was already in it, and then it got to a point where...
He probably just volunteered.
I mean, yeah, that's what happened, is they were all meeting and having these conversations and drafting these papers in his tavern. And he said, I'm in it, guys. Like, I'll take it. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so they were like, absolutely.
He's like, all I do is sell real estate, collect taxes, and pour beer. Like, I got plenty of time. Somebody else can do that.
He wasn't married yet. Didn't have kids.
Yeah.
He was all about it.
Cool.
But I think it's a really cool story. I know there's still, obviously, forever, it's like kind of urban legendy, and it's going to be up for historical debate, but I'm all for it. I think it happened. Mech deck all day.
Yeah, why not?
I claim it truth, guys.
Yeah.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, what does it matter at this point if it's wrong? It's cooler if it's right. Mm-hmm. So, it's right.
Word. You heard it here first, guys.
It's right. It's real. It happened.
Yeah. We have the secret printout of the mech deck.
Yeah.
Not really.
I mean, well, we can make one if somebody needs proof.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, Photoshop's a thing, guys.
But
we'll figure it out. But we're back, guys. So, hope you enjoyed our rambling. Hope you have not tired of us in our absence. Mm-hmm. And we'll be back next week with a new brewery and a new town and a new story or two.
Yeah, and the week after that.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, we're going to do 20 again.
What?
So,
and
pretty excited.
Stay tuned, because later in the season we will be doing kind of prelims for the Buzz Bracket. Mm-hmm. We are going to, like we said last year, we had somebody kind of provide us with the bracket. This year we are going to work into some preliminary rounds, have you guys get involved into who actually makes it into the bracket. And then for season 3, we'll have that actually taking place. So stay tuned a little bit later as that starts to come into play, and let us know what you liked, didn't like. Leave us some comments and some feedback. We're always happy to take your comments to heart and make changes. And if you've got great stories, please tell us, because we love them and we want to research them.
Check you later.
Bye.